can be controlled.
Oh, I think in Zoom you can actually in Zoom you can pin it. You can pin from the organizer side. You can actually pin a speaker, but I don't think you can do that in what's this thing called? Teams.
It does have a spotlight. If you put on the 3 little dots.
I can pin it for me. I mean, I can pin.
Yes, you should be able to do that.
Yeah.
Hi. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Well, also, just to check while we are waiting, you have the slides okay to share and have the polls aside. Excellent, thank you.
I suppose we will have to start on the clock, given we have very tight schedule today, but maybe we give some time for other participants to join.
I think we can start. We've got, and I'm sure more will join.
Yes, I agree.
It's time. It's 12:01.
So should I begin with my introduction for everybody, or are we waiting for the team? Okay. So good morning. It's morning for me, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be, I guess, around the world. Distinguished guests, fellow speakers, colleagues, and friends. It's an honour and a privilege for me to be here today as chair of the Women in Governance, Risk Compliance, Financial Crime and Fraud Prevention at our inaugural meeting. Today's just another conference, though. I think today represents something far more significant and far more important. It represents recognition. It recognises that we, in the fields of governance, in the fields of risk, compliance, and financial crime prevention are no longer back office disciplines. I think for too long they have been. They're now frontline guardians of trust, stability, and I don't know what they're asking me to do there. I think we're fine. So trust, stability, and integrity in the global system. And increasingly, I think we know that we're being led by women. We're shaping the industry and we're leading. For decades, these sectors were often dominated by technical expertise that came regulatory frameworks and institutional structures where our voices as women were not always equally represented or heard. I've tried my entire career to break through that glass ceiling, and I think we're all doing it, and we're all doing it very well. But I think over the last 10 years, I would say in my career, something remarkable has happened. I think women have not only entered these professions, but we've also started to transform them. So across the world, women, can somebody please turn off their mute themselves? I think we've got somebody else coming in. So as I was saying, so women, we've not only entered these professions, we've now transformed them. Across the world, women are leading financial intelligence units. I have two very good friends that probably lead two of the biggest financial intelligence units globally. We have regulatory agencies led by women, risk divisions, compliance team, and investigative bodies. So we're writing laws. I write laws myself. Many of you have contributed to compliance and regulatory and legal frameworks. We're designing supervisory frameworks, and we're building anti-financial crime techniques and shaping the future of governance. But while we're doing this, we're doing it with a leadership style that isn't represented in the way that men mostly do it. And I think what we bring to the table as women collectively is collaboration, strategic thinking, reliance, and integrity. But we all must also be honest about what we do. The world we're navigating in today is far more complex than it's ever been before. We live in a world of instability. In my opinion, too many men are running the world, and too many old men, and it's a problem because the world and financial crime is evolving at extraordinary speed, and today all of us sit across continents that experience unprecedented instability, not seen probably since the Second World War. So we're facing new threats driven by cybersecurity, digital assets, artificial intelligence, organised crime networks, organised state actors, and cross-border illicit finance flows like we've never seen in history. The criminals we are fighting today, they're very sophisticated, they're technologically enabled, and they're globally connected, and they perform far better than we do on the good side. They're very organised. So that means that we need to respond as equally sophisticated. Governance needs to be more intelligent. Risk management needs to become more dynamic. Compliance must be more proactive, and financial crime prevention must be now more technically empowered than ever before. So perhaps most importantly, it must be more inclusive, because I think diversity in leadership is not simply about fairness. It's about better decision making consequences. Different people strengthen risk assessments. Different perspectives strengthen those risk assessments. Different experiences strengthen investigative capabilities, and different voices strengthen governance. When women lead in governance, risk, compliance, and financial crime prevention, organisations gain something very invaluable. They gain balance, accountability, and foresight. So I think this summit is therefore about more than professional development. It's about building a community of women, just like all of us, who are shaping the future of global integrity. And it's also about mentoring the next generation of investigators, regulators, risk professionals, and compliance leaders. I want us to continue to break that glass ceiling, and I want us to do it for our children and their children, and our daughters and their daughters. So it's also about creating networks where knowledge is shared, collaboration is strengthened, and leadership is amplified. But perhaps most importantly, I think it's about ensuring that women enter these professions today won't have to ask whether they belong. we've always had to ask if we really belonged, because I think the truth is now we already do. So the future of governance, risk, compliance, financial crime, fraud prevention will not be defined by technology alone. I don't believe that for 1 minute. It'll be defined by leadership, and it'll be defined by us as women. Leaders that understand complexity, leaders that understand innovation while safeguarding integrity, leaders that recognise trust is the foundation of every financial system, and increasingly that leadership is going to be women leading the charge. So today, as we launch this inaugural summit, I encourage us all to do 3 things. First, share our knowledge openly. Our collective experience is one of our greatest strengths. Secondly, support each other. When women support women, extraordinary things happen. And third, lead with courage, because the challenges ahead in governance, risk, compliance and financial crime prevention will require bold thinking and decisive leadership. And I have absolutely no doubt that women in this room that are already doing this are ready to meet the challenge head on. For far too long, women have followed the rules. Today, we're going to write them. And tomorrow, we're going to be leading the systems that enforce them. So thank you. I wish you a wonderful summit, and I will be back later. Over to you. I think Elaine is next. Elaine, are you next?
I think
I think
Dr.
next is Adenike.
Yeah,
Yes.
Dr. Adenike, please.
Okay, thank you. Please confirm if you can hear me.
Yes.
If I'm audible. Okay, fine. So what is my role today? I am to speak to the reason why we have the WGRCFP and the strategic focus of the platform. So the Women in Governance, Risk and Compliance and Financial Crime Prevention is a professional network. I am building on what Loretta had already said. It's a network that is dedicated to advancing leadership, visibility and expertise of women, across governance, risk management, compliance, financial crime, and all related sector. And the main purpose of the platform, is a collaborative platform for networking, knowledge sharing, knowledge exchange and professional development. Is also there to promote gender equity and leadership opportunities for women in GRC and financial crime prevention. Also, the purpose is also to support policy adequacy, capacity building, and public awareness initiatives, and to also promote a governance structure that ensures accountability, ethical leadership, and transparency across these fields and across different organizations. An effective platform for women professionals and leaders working in and leaders that are also aspiring to work in these fields. We aim to empower women with the tools, the networks, the opportunities to grow personally and professionally. Now, what are the unique value propositions of this? It is women-led, it is women-focused, it's specifically designed, to amplify female voices and leadership in GRC and financial crime prevention. Like Loretta mentioned, women are underrepresented at the leadership position. And when it comes to some specific fields, you will not see much women. Even if you have them at the bottom level, by the time they are getting to the senior level, you see that the number thins out. It's also to create safe spaces and peer learning opportunities for women across these fields. It's also to, I mentioned earlier around advocacy, is also to actively address challenges faced by women across diverse backgrounds, including cultural and systemic bias that exist, in a women's career, and also strategic partnership for leadership access. It's to collaborate with regulators, with firms, with NGOs, and to open leadership pipeline for women so that we can have more women growing into leadership across these fields. It's also a holistic model. It supports personal development, professional development, entrepreneurial development, and it doesn't just the financial service industry. It's also something that we also aim to drive across SMEs and NGOs and the different sectors that are normally not really looked into when it comes to governance and ethical compliance, and also to champion reforms and community-driven GRC initiatives in underserved regions. Now, what are the membership criteria for joining the WGRCFP? We have experienced people in GRC, in audits, in risk, in legal, in ESG, sustainability, financial crime, prevention, fraud prevention, cybersecurity, data governance, and ethics. It could also be early career professionals, graduates or students pursuing careers in these fields, entrepreneurs, or professionals in different in the regulated sectors too can also join. And we also have industry leaders, consultants, researchers, or academics, educators, whatnot. We have them as they are also likely members, so anyone across these fields is eligible to join the platform. We have different category of membership. We have professional membership, that's those with 2 years plus experience in GRC and anti-financial crime related roles. We have students and emerging members. These can enroll, people that are enrolled or recently completed their studies in related fields. We also have executive leader as senior leaders or decision makers in relevant industries. And we also have ally and supporter groups. These are allies or non-practitioners that support the women in governance, risk compliance, and financial crime prevention. And when it comes to the core membership benefits, members have the opportunities to participate in events, in programs, in networking activities. There is access to vibrant international network of leaders and professionals, entrepreneurs, researchers, tutors in GRC, as many have worked with. There's also an invitation to webinars, to roundtables, to global events. There's mentorship and leadership opportunity. You can be a mentor and you can be a mentee as well. Then there is opportunity for recognition through awards, spotlights, and different features, and participation in working group, research and publication. There are different working groups within the group and join in order to gain knowledge and to provide their own input and support to the platform, and to contribute expertise through different committees, working groups, and mentoring programs. Are built on ethical leadership, empowerment through inclusion, collaboration over competition. Rather than women competing, we need to work together to hold one another's hands so that we can all rise together. And also professional integrity and respect for diversity. So what is next? To all of us that are here, that are not yet part of this group, we invite you to complete the membership program on www.wgrcfp.org. I believe that this will be the end of this program. Join our membership team, and you can also your inbox for upcoming events and leadership opportunity. So I will leave it here, and I believe that there will be opportunity for questions, and can also be in the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you, Adenike. I think that was really helpful. Given a very short time, if we can move quickly to the third speaker, that would be great. If we have any questions, put it in the chat, or we can come back to them later. Thank you. Over to you then.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to speak today, and I've got a couple of slides. So, if we can please share the slides, and I will take the audience through my thoughts on the state of GRC today. Wonderful. GRC trends, successes, and challenges. So if we move on right away to the next slide, a couple of words about myself. You may have come across me. I usually write, speak, teach on risk, enterprise risk in general, non-financial risk management, which I think is the vibrant, dynamic space. I am certainly very passionate about this space, and I hope all of you on the call are as well. So if we move on to the next slide, if we look at the World Economic Forum and that is the go-to report that all of us risk professionals, I'm sure, read. They've just published their 2026 outlook. It's interesting how risks are becoming more complex. They're becoming more urgent, more interconnected. So the landscape, I'm sure you would agree with me, is more and more complicated. And I've been reading this report certainly for many years. I think what is interesting to me is also the color of the key risks, because you can see the blue, which is financial, sort of traditional credit market liquidity, not even the top 10. So what keeps us all collectively up at night is more non-financial risks, whether it's misinformation and disinformation due to generative AI, cyber, third party, financial crime landscape. So this really is quite extraordinary. And if we move on, argue that because of this, it is the year of this non-financial risk management. So it is the environment for us. We can take it as complex and risky, but we can also take it as an opportunity for us to truly add value. And there are so many frameworks out there to support us for financial services. Basel Committee on Banking Supervision remains the go-to source. Non-financial world course or ISO frameworks, they all talk about value, risk management, not just as a tick box exercise, but the help in achievement of strategic objectives, improving resilience, improving risk culture, and achieving better customer outcomes. So if we move on to the next slide, while all of this is out there for us, in reality, certainly, what do I see within organizations? So all of this positive, positive right framework for risk management, in fact, in reality, manifests in quite a lot of challenges. So we can see, and I'm sure you would agree with me, first line has apathy and at times organizational fatigue. And that's where we approach our business, our HR, our IT, and guess what? We are going to be doing some risk assessments with you. And think, how do they react? Is it, oh, fantastic, risk and compliance colleagues are coming to us? Or is it, oh, risk and compliance colleagues are coming to us? So these types of reactions, we need to understand where they are coming from. And they are coming, I would argue, and let me be provocative, gone too far, too many risk assessments, too much regulation, too much duplication, at times detachment from strategic objectives, overly granular methodologies, so we cannot see the wood for the trees. So many little issues, abilities we are discussing instead of focusing on the big ticket items. And sometimes fantastic risk, compliance, financial crime prevention people, we are in dust, we put our head down and get things done. But are we lacking what I call sales and marketing? It's not just about checklist. We can't implement risk management, robust risk management. We change policies, procedures, and guidelines. We need to make people care. So this sales and marketing, all front office, entrepreneurial, I would argue, are more and more important. So if we move on to the next slide. So the next slide is actually a poll. So if we move on and also launch a poll, overall state of GRC. So you hopefully will see a pop-up on Teams, and let's consider together, are we at the overall level progressing significantly, or somewhat progressing, or have we stagnated because we've reached a stage where so much is out there that we are hindering the business rather than creating value? So for you, so just give me thumbs up. Hopefully the poll is there and maybe you are seeing the pop-up. And if you are able to answer the poll, let's maybe display the results to see what the virtual audience is thinking today. I'll leave it for a few more seconds to display the results. because we have a few more polls there as well. No, if not, it may be difficult technically, you know, to launch a poll. No problem. I would encourage you to reflect on this question, because at times, again, we take this protection. We need to maintain our license, so we do all of this risk and compliance, financial crime prevention things. But in the end of the day, are they more for the checklist, or do they also add value? So let's then move on to the next slide and consider a couple of challenging points. So here, if we think about the breadth of all the risk and compliance activities, whether it's financial crime, conduct, we have in the last few years launched absolutely into sustainability. Third-party vendor supply chain risk management is now its own domain. Data, information security. And why I've got these levels on the side? Because given the risk landscape is so complex, these disciplines, of course, have to be there for a reason. However, they also their own silos and cause duplication. And each one of these domains tends to create their own risk assessments, tends to create their own incident logging forms. So if you speak about risk and compliance to first line, they will say, but complete risk assessment on financial crime and conduct. But now you are coming with sustainability, there are some duplicative questions. So there is so much of the silo risk and compliance management that is one of the areas that I encourage all of us risk professionals to consider. And if we move on to the next slide, that's the slide on connectivity, collaborating, reaching across the silos, and all of our responsibilities.
On yes, considering, and 5% not sure.
That is excellent. That is excellent. That majority is already picking up on that. And Rita, can you tell me, please, the result of the first poll? So what was the majority
That was the second one that you had in the options.
Continues to somewhat progress.
Yes, that was the, and I think here also we have reached 70% on the top one, 20 responses. So I think we can move on.
Fantastic. And I think it's interesting also GRC continues to progress. So we are not saying that it's making big leaps, but neither the majority are thinking that we've stagnated. And that is why the alignment is a priority, because we have to continue simplifying so that we continue with our progress. And if we move on to the next slide, a few more thoughts. So let's pick another area where I think we can certainly add more risk intelligence. And that is the forward-looking emerging risk management, speaking about the environment around us, absolute complexity, and many organizations, their boards and executives spend insufficient amount of time in this forward-looking space, thinking what's around the corner, what is beyond near term, maybe new risks that have transformed or they do not fit into the frameworks. The risks that send low signals today but have high convexity tomorrow. Are we providing this risk intelligence? Do we have the horizon scanning, and are we providing this risk intelligence to the boards? And let's go on to the next slide, which is yet another poll. So let me ask you this question. So the next slide is on the mastering emerging risks. So do you feel that within your organization you have this on your list to do? You have this mature process? Or perhaps it is ad hoc or more is needed. Certainly what I see within the organizations is the environment is moving faster than us individually. Within the firms, we do not spend enough time in this forward-looking in this forward-looking space. Very good. Let's leave a couple of seconds and Ritam, just tell me.
Yeah, we have 15 responses now, Elena. 60% is going with more is needed. We have about 24% now on ad hoc, and list is yes, mature process about 17%. And we have reached 20 responses now, so I think that's pretty much the picture now.
That is the picture. And I think if more is needed, which in a way I'm not surprised with, I think it is certainly wise, given the complex risk landscape, to dedicate some more time to this activity. And if we move on to the next slide, I think overall in this short message, my key recipe for success would be think sharper, act smarter. Why? Because at times we are overly focused on risk compliance and financial crime prevention processes. We are focused on processes in a way, has been completed, has the assessment been finished by the end of March, have we done things? And it's more about the content. So we've completed all our activities. How are they helping us to manage risk effectively? Are we focusing on the big ticket items, or are we just doing the day-to-day little issues, little things within our organizations? And if we move on to the next slide, which is actually the last slide of my keynote speech, and this last slide reflects the results of the poll I've done with GRC professionals. And the question there was, what are we not doing enough of? And I think that's a good way of framing it and reflecting on it. What are we not doing enough of? And you can see interesting thoughts, reflecting. Interesting, isn't it? So stepping back, we are rushing and doing so many activities, but at times what we need to do to generate better outcomes is just step back and think through what is our strategy, what is our GRC strategy, what is our value add. Interdiscipline, cross-coordination, deep dives, thematic reviews, emerging risks. So again, intelligence, more focus on the content, less on the processes. And of course, you know, the usual suspect is here, generative AI and agentic AI is now everybody's focusing on. Are we leading in this space, or are we the followers? So, you know, while the business is employing very actively generative AI, it's got its own risks and opportunities. Where are we as GRC professionals? So with this, I thank you for listening. I hope you found this useful. I think it's very interesting to see the polls, even in this small sort of virtual audience, on certain themes that resonate with you. And I'm sure we'll have a little bit of time for in the end. And now let me pass it on to Natalie. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elena. Natalie, if you can take over, that will be great. Thank you. Natalie, have you lost you or? Yeah, you're on mute. Yeah.
Still muted.
The unmute button is on the top, if you can see the microphone usually.
Felicia, do you think you can unmute her from?
Okay, thank you.
Oh,
Sorry, I was not familiar with this one. Actually, could you take the slides down for now? I'll let you know when to put it up later. Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you. It's a pleasure to be here as this new community begins. I want to begin really with something I suspect many women know here today. The challenge isn't always getting into these different types of roles. It's what happens once we're there. Many of you, no doubt, are highly qualified, technically strong, and you carry serious responsibility. And yet the deeper challenge is often something else. It's our authority, visibility, and influence. How do we, as women, hold ground in spaces that are often under high pressure, highly political, and still not really fully designed for women in mind? Now, does that sound familiar to you? Are you often the only woman at the table? Do you feel that you have to prove your value over and over again? Are you often invited, but you sort of sense your authority is not always fully assumed when you arrive? And alongside all of these things, we have quieter calculations, family, mobility, even our own personal cost of ambition. So I think it's really important for us to sort of name this reality, because if we misdiagnose what the problem is, then we're even going to start working on the wrong solution. So I'd like to start first with a poll. So if we can put up the first poll, that would be fantastic. What I'd like to ask you is, in your leadership journey, what has been most challenging for you? Is it developing your technical expertise? Is it holding authority in rooms, meetings, environments? Is it translating complexity for other people? Or is it balancing leadership, your work, and your life outside of your work? And it may well be all of those or some of those, but if you had to pick which one would you pick? And let's submit the poll and see what the answers are.
Natalie, can you see the poll?
I can, yes. Excellent. I can see. The top one is holding authority in the room. Well, that's good, because that's what I'm going to be talking about. So yeah, that's come up very high. 53%, followed by balancing leadership and life, and then translating complexity. And how interesting, developing technical expertise has got 0 points, 0 votes. So let's dive in a little bit then to thinking about holding that authority, shall we say, in the room. I think this confirms something quite important, you know, that for women, the issue isn't knowledge. The issue is what happens the moment when our authority is actually being tested. And I want to give you a little example of this from my own life. You know, I learned this very directly a number of years ago. I was living in London, and I was due to meet a senior group of leaders in the city, in a financial institution. I had arrived early, and they'd already started without me. Ever happened to you? I was the only woman, and I stood outside the door, and I could hear everybody talking inside. It was a small moment, but it captured something larger. I knew I was qualified to be there. I had prepared. I was prepared to be there. I was expected to be there. And yet, the meeting had already begun, as if I had not been part of it. Now, that is a familiar experience, I believe, for many women. You know, we can be fully competent and we can find ourselves entering spaces where authority is not naturally handed to us, where our presence has to be established more consciously, where assumptions are already in play before we've even said a word. So this is why our expertise is not always going to be enough. The deeper question is whether what we know is being received, trusted, and acted on. And one of the earliest carriers of this authority is your voice. Your voice. Many women in technical environments focus intensely on their content, precision, expertise, but far less on what and how they're saying. Their voice as an instrument of leadership. Faster, lighter, more upwardly inflected voices sound more open and approachable, and this can be really, really useful. But in high stakes situations, slower, steadier, grounded voices will often be heard with more authority. I saw this really clearly with a client I coached a number of years ago who had been overlooked over and over again for a promotion. Now, they were really highly capable, but had a higher voice, a quick pace, lots of animation, lots of gesturing. And I think that they were being read as less authoritative than actually what they were. So what did we work on? We didn't work on the competence level or the technical expertise. We worked on perception. How was the person being perceived by other people? Slowing down pace, quieting the hands, grounding the voice, and the outcome changed. So here's a little practical tip for you to try. Lower your chin slightly, slower your pace, and land key statements cleanly and clearly. Don't rush your authority. Let it arrive. Now, going back to my story in the City of London, I had a split-second decision to make. Shall I politely and slip in quietly round the back, or do I enter differently? And I knew immediately what the setting required of me. So I opened the door firmly, I made sure I was heard, and walked in with strength. And I said, "Gentlemen, for waiting for me." Now they all turned to look at me because there had been a little bit of a noise. Yeah, I had walked into the room and the room recalibrated itself. I sat down, I placed my hand firmly on the table. And from that moment, I was in the conversation. Now, the point of this story is not that women need to become aggressive. It's that authority is embodied. Before you even speak, people are reading you. They're reading your posture, your pace, how still you are, whether your body and your message of what you're saying is aligned. Every group you walk into has a rhythm. It has a baseline tempo. And if you want attention, you have to interrupt the rhythm with enough grounded presence for people to look up, reorientate themselves. That is what happened in that moment. The group recalibrated, and then it listened. Now, many years ago, I had the great opportunity of studying with Michael Grinder, whose work on non-verbal communication has influenced me deeply. One of the most useful distinctions in the work was between credibility and approachability. And what I have come to believe is that many women do not lack capability. They lack range. They need to know when a moment requires warmth, invitation, and when it requires groundedness, stillness, and unmistakable presence. Now, this sits at the heart of the Red Silk leadership philosophy that I have been developing, which explores authority, identity, and deeper human dimensions of leadership. And in that work, I speak about leadership through the language of silk and stone. So we can put up here the slide of silk and stone. Okay, silk, stone. So let's move to silk. Let's move to silk. What is silk? What is silk when it comes to talking about leadership? Silk is empathy. It's our ability to translate. It's about relationship and warmth. And stone in leadership is about clarity, conviction, boundary, and authority. Now, most women recognize silk in themselves quite easily. Stone is often harder. It's not because we are incapable of it, but because we've often been socialized away from it, or because we fear the backlash that can come when we become too clear, too firm, or too certain. But stone without silk becomes rigid, and silk without stone becomes invisible. And for the future of leadership, we need both. So if the practical takeaway for the last piece was about voice, the second is your body. How do you enter a meeting? How do you sit? How much do you move under pressure? Do your gestures reinforce authority, or do they dissipate it? Do you smile to soften what you're saying before people have even absorbed what you're trying to say? Sometimes the small shifts will make the biggest difference. More upright posture, greater stillness, firmer placement of your hands, less unnecessary movement, more deliberate eye contact. Because leadership presence isn't just about personality, it's about calibration. It's the ability to read situations and require and respond with clarity, steadiness, or warmth for your messages to land. Charismatic leadership, in my view, is not about your performance. It's about coherence. It's about what you are saying being matched by how you say it, so that your content, your voice, and your body work together. And that is where silk and stone begin to integrate. So let's go to the second poll, shall we? Let's go to the second poll. Can you put the second poll up? No, second poll is coming. Okay. So let me put it, and maybe you can put it in the chat. When the pressure is really on, oh, there we go. There it is. I can see it now on the screen. When the pressure is really on you in a meeting or a conversation, how are you most likely to respond? Do you soften your message? Do you over-explain it? Do you rush or lose presence? Or do you hold back what you really think? You hold back what you really think. Let's see what's coming through. Okay, softening is coming through. Interesting. There's quite a mix actually here. Not too much rushing, which is good. But holding back and over-explaining. So yes, it's like this sort of going back in on yourself in terms of thinking, well, how do you best communicate? How do you get over your message? And maybe softening the message is not going to help always, because it can often be that you need to be stepping into more of your authority, more into your stone at that point, because people may not listen to you. It always depends on what it is that you're trying to say. Okay, let's take that poll down and also the slide for now. I think what that question can often reveal is that the challenge is not capability. It's what happens to the range of your communication when you are under pressure. And that is why this conversation is not only about technical leadership, but about grounded leadership. So let's move on to the third and final part. Because leadership is not only about knowing how to survive these difficult conversations, difficult situations, it's about knowing how not to lose yourself in the process. I think for many years, I have become very skillful at stone. I've learned how to speak with authority. I've learned how to hold senior audiences. I know how to calibrate my voice, my body, and my message. I've spent years practicing that and living it and embodying it. But I also noticed that, like many high achieving women, I had become highly effective partly by learning how to fragment myself. To be the serious one, the strategic one, the reliable one. And while that has served me, some of those softer, more relational, more creative parts of me have been quieter than they should have been. So what matters now for me can be captured in 4 words. And we can put up the slide here.
then people can probably get in touch with you. That would be awesome. Thank you. I mean, such wonderful keynote from Elena and Natalie. And thank you to everyone who has stayed with us to what has been a really genuinely, energizing set of discussions. Natalie, what you said about how to deliver speech and things, it's such an inspirational thing, because we all have been there. So what we'll do is we'll now move on to the panel sessions, if that's all right. So I'm Tam Chakraborty. I'm in the board of advisor at WGRCFP. And in my day job, I'm a senior manager at True North Partners, where I work on the risk and regulatory transformations and advisory. It's my privilege today to moderate the panel session. This conversation is important because governance, risk, compliance, and financial crime prevention have never been more complex or more essential. But the human side is just as important, such as building careers, shaping culture, and creating leadership pathways that last. I think, Natalie, you already touched upon some of those things. We will probably go into the depths of early career as well in these panel sessions. We have an exceptional panel of leaders today who have shaped their profession across the continents, institutions, and regulatory environments. And today they will help us explore what the next decade of GRC talent journey looks like. We are running a tight schedule, so I might gently step in to keep us on time. And I would like to ask our panelists to keep the answers in 2 minutes so we can cover as much ground as possible. Before we begin, I would like to invite each of our panelists to give a very brief introduction, their names, roles, and perhaps one line on your current focus. If we can, keep it around 15 to 20 seconds. Maybe let's start with Marilet's.
Hi, I'm Marilia Agnes. I'm a multilingual lawyer based in Lisbon and London, and I work currently as general counsel for different organizations that are actually startups at the moment.
Thank you. How about Loretta?
Good morning again, everyone. I'm the advisory chair of this group, and I work in many jobs. One of my life is I'm a consultant at MNC, which is the ex-head of the FATF. So I work on the virtual assets and financial crimes around virtual assets and digital assets globally. I currently work across 19 jurisdictions writing regulatory and legal frameworks around the risks associated with these new asset classes. And I was the architect of the Commonwealth model laws on stablecoins and virtual assets. And I've written 2 books on the risk of stablecoins in as it sits today.
Thank you, Loretta. Can I then move on to Natalie?
Hi, my name is Natalie Schoon. I live in the UK. I'm based in the UK. And I work as an independent consultant in risk regulation, governance, and I'm at the moment actually looking into SME financing and what the difficulties are with that.
Excellent, thank you. Femi, would you like to go next, please? Femi, are you on the line? Okay.
Yes, I'm on the line. Good
excellent.
afternoon, everyone. My name is Femi Jayola. I'm currently the Chief Risk Officer for Access Bank. I'm based in Lagos, Nigeria. Prior to that, I used to be the Group Chief Compliance Officer and also served previously as the Chief Audit Executive as well. Great to be here as well.
Thank you very much. Senior, can we move on to you next, please? Senior, are you on the...
Yes, I'm unmuted.
Excellent. You're still on mute.
Yep.
Okay, I think it's worked now, has it?
Yes.
I'm having the situation as Natalie. Thank you for your patience. Happy St. Patrick's Day from Ireland. I am an independent non-executive director on a number of fintech boards here in Ireland. And previously, I was a qualified barrister who ended up moving into financial services, did a small amount of time in banking, ended up very happily moving into the fintech world. I'm a mom to one daughter and two furry girls who might say hello at some stage during our chat. So I'm sorry if they do. And yeah, very happy to be here. I'm also a qualified life well-being coach. So this kind of discussion really matters to me. And thank you to the keynote speakers and yourselves for organising.
Thank you, Celia, and happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you.
Can we have Yelena, please? Yelena, are you on the call? Perhaps we can move on to Patience then. Patience, you would be joining us as a panelist
Afternoon,
today.
everyone. Thank you. Afternoon, everyone. My name is Patience. I'm based in South Africa. My career has been predominantly in the model risk governance space, but I have since left corporate South Africa to pursue my own interests. I have started a company called Future Fit Coaching and Advisory, which is focusing on career transitions for risk professionals and quants, and also looking at people risk matters. So I'm very much excited to be part of this conversation and look forward to it.
Thank you very much, Patience. We will start the discussion now. Felicia, if you can just ping Yelena if she is joining us. However, we probably can start with, where many of our audiences today are, that's at the beginning or thinking about, starting the career at GRC or financial crime space, which can look quite opaque from the outside. So perhaps I would like to start by asking, to enter GRC and financial crime prevention field, what are the most valuable skills, certifications, or experiences that can help accelerate career entry and progression? So Loretta, if you don't mind, if can I begin with you and ask, you work across policy and practice. Is there a certification or credential you would put above others, or what are your thoughts?
Be fearless. Work out that you need to be fearless, and you need to have courage in an environment where has predominantly been men for too long. I think financial crimes prevention were predominantly men roles, and seeing step in these roles because they require incredible, navigating incredible complexity, ambiguity, and constant change, from money laundering, terrorism financing, proliferation financing, which I work across all at the moment, to cyber risk, to digital assets, virtual assets. The landscape is evolving faster than regulation has ever been able to. But funnily enough, I think women thrive much better than men because we multitask. And I think critically today, it's important that it's just not about technical expertise in these fields. It's judgment. It's judgment, collaboration. And I think the most important thing for me, it's the ability to connect the dots that others don't see. So in financial crimes, I see that as the most important thing that I've seen in the last 10 years that I've been involved in this space.
Thank you, Loretta. Femi, maybe we can move on to you next. From a CRO's perspective, what do you wish candidates walked in the door already knowing, and what actually moves the needle early in a career?
Thanks, Rita. I think Loretta alluded to some of the things that comes to my mind as well. So things around stakeholder management, I think is critical. Inevitably, as risk and compliance professionals, we need to work with the business and collaborate with other teams in the enterprise. So that ability to manage your stakeholders is critical. A bit I would like to speak to is around communication. I think it's an area that professionals typically struggle with. More often than not, we need to pass across difficult and not too pleasant messages to our stakeholders. So that ability to be able to show empathy in our communication is very critical. So it comes back to the conversation around, is the cup half full or half empty, right? It's the same thing, but the way you then pass the message goes a long way in terms of your stakeholder engagement. The other bits around problem solving as well. I think gone are the days when professionals in this field will say you can't do this, the law says this, the regulation says this. more often than not, stakeholders are looking for us to then be able to provide solutions to those problems, be more creative, and be able to prefer solutions to some of the regulatory hurdles and challenges that we have to face on a day-to-day basis. And I think lastly for me is around attention to details. There's a lot of reliance that stakeholders place on us to protect the franchise as well. So that's curiosity, that attention to details to make sure that we don't miss something is very critical. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Femi. So from Loretta and Femi, from what you said, there's a strong theme of qualitative aspects such as being fearless, stakeholder management, doing what you feel is right, and these are really important aspects. If I want to touch upon a little bit on the technical side as well, Marilis, you have legal training. So what would you think about this? Are certifications still important as practical exposures? Do we have to balance? Or what would be your advice on this for early starters?
Thank you. I will share here what I have seen and what I would like someone to have told me earlier, because it makes all the difference. On certifications, yes, they matter. Of course, they matter, especially if you are in the early stages of your career, because they open doors to you, and because you don't have already a track record point to say I done this, I have done that. So my key message here is the certification gets you the interview, but the judgment gets you the seat. And you only build judgment by owning real problems, and it's not by studying them. But if you want advice, so from my side, I am a certified lawyer, qualified lawyer. I also have a certification as DPO and the international diploma in GRC. This gives me the legitimacy to work, but it's my work that speaks for me. If you are targeting financial crime specifically, I would recommend ACAMS, that is a recognized benchmark, or the ICA, International Compliance Association. If you are moving more to a space that is related to AI Act, to ISO 42001, almost nobody is qualified in this space. So that is an open door at the moment. But the experience that accelerated my career was more than my certification, was getting to early stage environments, for example, startups, scale-ups, and building the infrastructure, the compliance infrastructure there from scratch. You learn more building a framework from zero than auditing one that already exists, because you won't hold the whole problem. You develop judgment, not just knowledge. So my practical advice would be find the environment where when you are the most junior person, but at the same time, you are expected to have a voice in the room. And this is where you grow.
Thank you very much, Marila. That's really helpful advice from you. I guess if I have to ask all three of you, Marilis, Loretta, and Femi, if you had to pick just one skill in one sentence that differentiates candidate today, what would that be?
Resilience.
Okay.
Learn to be resilient and learn not to take on board what people say to you. That's my one word for you.
Ownership.
Ownership.
And take the problem, be proactive, and try to find the solution. And even if you fail, it's a lesson learned.
Femi?
I think for me, it would be around stakeholder management. I think over time, I think we've been a little bit insular. But for you to be successful, you have to have a way of building relationship and working together with other parts of the enterprise to solve problems. Because if you don't have that relationship, you're going to struggle really to pass the messages out.
Excellent, thank you. So resilience, ownership, and stakeholder management emerged as the most, sought after skills for all of us, or people who are starting their career. Now, I'm going to stay with careers, but moving from entry to progression now. And one of the challenges in GRC is that early careers are, the careers are rarely linear. Often, they're built through lateral moves, difficult moments, and, sometimes also with leap of faith, to be honest. So I'm going to ask Natalie and Sinead if you could take us to your own journeys and the practical steps that shaped your leadership. So if I start with you, Natalie, consulting gives you a view across many organizations. Do you notice patterns in what separates those who progress from those who plateau?
Thank you, Ruth. And that's a really, it's a very nice question. I've been pondering about this since last week. I did a talk for the CFA Institute on women in finance, right? And similar questions came up. So how do I make progression? And for me, it's been, I started off with a very linear career, and then the company I worked for merged. The bank I then worked for merged. The next one, so I've been rolling into things, but what I see a lot, and there is a big distinction between men and women. So a man in a lot of cases just goes after, say, oh, I can do this, I'm just going to go and do this. So makes a move to the left or the right or up or whichever way they want to. Whereas women are always a bit more held back when it comes to that. Well, I'm not sure if I can do this. Am I the right person for this? Why would they choose me? And there are two things that came up in last week's talk. It was the confidence of a mediocre white man. Yeah, just go with it with that. And somebody actually mentioned, he's saying to his kids, that voice in your head that says, well, I'm not sure if I can do this. Demand proof from this voice in your head. Demand proof and write it down. And there is no proof. There's no reason why you can't do something. Sorry about that. I still see a lot of people making linear careers, but I do see more people thinking, actually, do I really enjoy this? Maybe not. Do I really want to make that promotion? Or do I actually want to become more technical? And it becomes a little bit more acceptable to not become the boss, if that makes sense.
That's really interesting to hear. Let's come back to this point in a moment. I have another question then for you. But if we move to Sinead, and Sinead, you have.
Thanks, Rhythm. Go ahead.
So, I was going to say that you founded Financial Innovate Her. Mm-hmm. Was there a moment where you decided to create the space you needed rather than wait for it?
That's such a good question. I might just touch firstly to a couple of comments that some of the speakers made, both earlier today and in this panel session, because I think they're just worth reiterating really quickly, conscious all the same of time. Loretta had talked earlier about women already kind of having a voice and being included right in the opening to today's session. And whilst that's definitely true, I think there's still a long way to go. Both here in Ireland and European-wide and worldwide. And I'm not even going to get into geopolitical stuff. I'm literally talking about financial services. And I know here in Ireland, in the financial service world, there's only 13% of us females who are chairs on financial service boards. So whilst I'm delighted to be one of 13%, it's also a price. So when the discussions were had in some of the keynote speeches around when you get into a room, do you really have a voice as a woman? I really liked the way Natalie spoke to it there actually as well in her keynote, and everything was really valuable today. But to talk about about your authority is not about how you say things, but a mix of how you say it and what you're saying. So to simplify that, competence and confidence have to go hand in hand. If you're a very confident human who has no competence, that's the Dunning-Kruger effect. And we all know that's just bull. But if you're brilliant and you have no way of enumerating yourself, then your competence doesn't matter because you don't have the confidence to act on it and to show up and to be real and authentic. And I mean, one thing for me, and I'm in my early 40s now, with authenticity, is that when I look back at my life, and I qualified as a lawyer 20 years ago, and my path has gone several different directions, and I've pivoted as needed, that the authenticity that I've always stood strong in doesn't always get me friends, but gets me the right ones, both professionally and personally, because I'd rather be me, the only voice in the room saying what is right, what is absolutely, in my opinion, right. I don't mean I'm inflexible. The reason I work well on boards is I listen to everybody. I look at things holistically. But being me has not always made me friends. But generally, I don't like, I'm who I am. Don't like me if you don't like me. Don't really care. I'm very lucky that I can choose who I do and don't work it. So if I get asked to partake in another side project and I don't really like the character of the person, I politely decline. So to get back to your question, Ritham, because I know we've only got 15 minutes left. So Financial Innovator was born out of a desire to have a safe space that was real, that was authentic, that wasn't bullshit people getting up on panels talking about how great they are because they're a woman leader, because there's plenty of women leaders. But are they good, nice, real women leaders? Are they leading by example? Are they bullying their way to the top, stamping on people to get there? And then sitting on a panel as a lawyer, you know, there's a few women's groups that I know people are involved in that I know, and they're all trampling on each other to get there. No, what my Financial Innovator group is, it's specifically fintech focused, and it is based in Ireland. I'm considering the UK actually. If anybody wants to lead it there for us, please reach out to me. But Financial Innovator is a group of 5 people that I brought together, myself and 4 other ladies who all bring different talents to the group, right? Because we don't get paid for it. And we run panel sessions. So you have the automatic networking that comes from going to these panel sessions. And then we have a mentoring program where we have mentors and mentees matched together. So CEOs and senior PCF role holders and mentoring people who are trying to, you know, develop themselves. And we also have every couple of months a dial-in coffee session where we do anything from wellness sessions, believing in yourself, fighting that glass ceiling, this middle-age piece of, like, we're in this sandwich generation as women. It's the highest level of suicide for women is the sandwich generation, where you're bringing up small people and looking after older people. It's such a stressful time for women. We have all the mental load stuff as well. So there's a lot said there, and I'm sorry I completely segued from the question, but absolutely Financial Innovator was formed by myself and the group I pulled together 2 years ago in June, actually, in Ireland, because I saw a gap. I see a lot of egos leading and not really adding value and making more groups, and they're all doing the same thing and battling to be heard. But what I have in Ireland is a lot of respect across the industry. I'm not liked by everybody in fintech. You're never going to be when you're real. But I have a lot of respect. I'm good with the regulators. I'm good with government and all of that. And just to tie it all together is, you know, I think that if you have a community that is a nice place to be, you've won at life. And I'm very lucky that personally, I have a lovely community, and professionally, I have a lovely community as well. And when I set Financial Innovator up, I was diagnosed depression from my doctor. Like, I'm not just saying I was depressed. I was in the middle of one of the most depressive episodes of my life. But I just went and I put that kind of negative time into something really positive that I'd wanted to do for years. And I just made it happen. So Loretta, I think you said be fearless. Just do it. And I just did it. And I arrived at that launch night, an absolute shell of a woman. And 2 years later, I'm a different person, but I've given back. I'm sorry, I've gone on there. I'll mute now.
It's fine. It was fascinating to hear. Can I ask then one thing? I mean, just some concrete takeaways, Natalie and Sinead. If you have to give just one tip, what people should people stop doing if they want to progress? You know, in a sentence, what would that be?
Stop thinking that you can't do it.
Excellent.
And it
So
might have to
mine,
involve talking to a friend who will, or an acquaintance, or a co or whatever, but to say, yes, of course you can do this. What are you talking about? In my case, my dad is my biggest supporter, probably.
That's so lovely. I would definitely agree with that. You know, we never talk as negatively to other humans as we do to ourselves in our own heads, you know. And so absolutely second that comment, really well made. I'd also say don't ever take credit for other people's work or pass off your mistakes. So I still make mistakes, even though I'm an independent non-executive director on boards. You know, my calendar scheduling could be way better. Sometimes I'm late for meetings. Sometimes I miss meetings if they haven't given me enough reminders because I'm balancing a lot. But I never place blame. And even sometimes when others try to blame you and it's not really my fault, I'm big and bold enough to let them just believe they're right. I don't need to be right. I'm perfectly happy within myself and know my own worth. And I think it's trying to prove ourselves all the time. Just keep up. I think, Marilia, you mentioned upskilling and learning. Like micro-credentials are really important these days. So just keep learning all the time, keep growing, because we learn until the day we die. And the people who think they know it all are all ego. And that's not where we need to be.
Thank you
And,
so much.
and I'd also add something in there. I'd say don't wait to be invited. Wait to be invited into leadership roles. Just step into it. I've never actually been invited to a table. I've just put my own seat at it, whether that be with governments or regulators or institutions. You know, I worked in financial markets for 30 years where my voice was never heard. So I just decided one day, enough of this. I'm just going to put my own seat at the table. So step into it, own it, and then shape it. But do it with humility. I think that's very important, because the future of our financial integrity and the future of trust in our systems, it all comes down to being humble as well, and the ability, you know, for people to understand where you're coming from. Don't treat people badly, and but also just don't take people's defense mechanisms as being something that should should scare you away from stepping into roles that you know you can do.
Thank you, Loretta. I guess these are really interesting things, but then if we want to zoom out from individuals to institutions, we often talk about talent gaps. However, organizations also play a huge role in shaping these pipelines, right? So let's maybe talk about that. Patience, you have operated at very senior levels at risk leadership. If I can ask you, and maybe if you can tell us a little bit about what does it actually take for an organization to build a pipeline and not just hire women into role, but genuinely develop and retain them? What would be your view?
Okay, thank you, Rita. I'm just going to draw my thought process from 3 data points. So one is going to be my industry experience. The second one is going to be the report that I read on the RMSA 2026 risk trends report, where CROs, over 50% of them have said that talent retentions and skill gaps is one of the risks that they are seeing that will be posing a greatest challenge into their organizations. Then the third one is what we've recently celebrated as International Women's Day. We spoke about give to gain. And I want to then come back to your question and say there's 2 things that come to mind that organizations or institutions need to be looking at. One is strategic foresight. Number 2 is cultural transformation. And I want to unpack what I mean by that. I think one of the speakers spoke about the issue around women is not that you are not skilled enough. I think we are all training fatigued, if that's a safe way to express my view. People but I think from an institution perspective, when you've got strategic priorities, you can, for example, a practical of doing this is you can look at leveraging AI, your current skills taxonomy, look at your strategic priorities, and then think about what are the emerging future skills that are required for you to execute on this strategy. And then you can use AI to recommend what type of training will then be required, what skills are required for us to then work on this bench strength that's going to help us achieve our long-term or medium to long-term strategic objectives. I think that works. And what it also does is you then find yourself in a place where you're able to produce an auditable process around succession planning, which is something that is not necessarily available. Succession planning almost feels like that secret in the family that nobody wants to talk about. But when it happens, it affects all of us. So you want it to be a transparent process that you can also be readily audited and can be repeatable. So if someone asks the question, why did we land this person as a successor, you are able to then motivate why. And then when we come back to the training, I then say once you've then been able to identify what skills intervention is required, you then go and do something that organizations are not doing. Are you measuring the return on investment on your skills interventions? How many times have we gone to training and you come back to the organization and nobody's checking? What is the alignment to this training, to the strategic objectives for the organization? What are we trying to look at as an organization? And is the training intervention aligned to that strategic objective? So it's the measurement of return on investment and what that does to you, because you're also now aware that costs have become a big issue in institutions right now. It then helps you to then manage your costs effectively, and then you're able to then understand where you need to drive or allocate your funds that give you the strategic impact. Now, coming to the cultural transformation, I always want to talk about the elephant in the room, because today we are speaking about women. And I always want to challenge ourselves, right? That when we come to speaking about the women agenda, we're not going to leave it to chance and leave it to our male counterparts to make it happen for us. However, there are things that we can learn from our male counterparts. And what I've seen with male counterparts that they do well is allyship. I've seen them do it very well. They pull what we call lift as you rise. I see male counterparts or colleagues do that very, very well. And from a cultural perspective, what about practically is, if you're a female leader and you want to measure lift as you rise, how would you do it? I would say perhaps you need to think about, how do you want to introduce this into performance management in a female leader? And it would look like, how many people have I actively played an allyship role for to get into roles that will create visibility for another female in the organization? Because Give to Gain is really speaking about visibility. So you want to create that visibility. It needs to be very intentional. It needs to be deliberate, right? And then the last thing that I want to talk about from a cultural transformation perspective is, when you look at, corporate governance in terms of stakeholder inclusivity, I think that when you think about the future workforce, the people that we are looking for are currently in school or in university. Partnerships that are strategic around corporate social initiatives would go a very long way to try and introduce and make the risk profession very fashionable. Because right now, I think most of us found out about the risk profession when we were already advanced in our education or have started our careers. So I think those are some of the things that I think practically be implemented, partnering with education institutions, with the government, to say, how can we introduce this profession early so that we are able to create that pipeline in our organizations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. An excellent, insight, to be honest. Something for us to, such a beautiful note to, maybe move on to maybe the audience question now, given we have a few moments left. I had a few more questions, but then I think we are running out of time on those, because Patience, what you have said, that so many questions in my mind, but let's keep it at that for the time being, and let's have an audience for the panelists. Any questions from anyone? If not, maybe what I can do is, maybe I can go around the room and maybe just ask I think I have 6 of you now. Maybe just take 30 seconds each to say, what is the single biggest opportunity you see emerging in this profession over the next decade? We start with you, Patience, maybe.
I can go.
Go on. Yes, Maria.
I would see that the opportunity in the next decade is not just technical. It's structural. We have the chance to build the governance profession in a way to reflect talent that has always been there, let's say like this, and make sure that the women who are building the frameworks are also the ones who get to lead them, let's say like this. Because on my own practice, I try to operationalize this. I sit on advisory boards because governance bodies need legal and compliance voices that are independent, technically fluent, and are willing to challenge. And these are keywords: independent, technically fluent, but at the same time, they are willing to challenge. As I said, I work with early stage companies, and Rhythm, sorry, I just want to complete my thought here. And what gets embedded in early stages becomes the culture. And that point is a leverage that we should take. And to finalize, is in terms of mentoring and sponsoring. That is very important, and they are different. We want mentoring, but we also want sponsorship. Women that speak about other women are very important, and bring them to the table. And this leads to the Women's Day mode, right? Give to gain. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you, Rita.
Thank you very much, Marila. I'm afraid that we have run out of time, but if you all can drop your notes on the chat so all the participants can, probably have read them. I would, sorry.
Sorry, go on, keep going. No, I was just, somebody put up a really good question for Loretta there, and I could probably just give a comment just in about 30 seconds around seat at the table, unless Loretta would prefer to.
Yeah, so I know that you're resilient. You have confidence in yourself, because the only thing somebody can say to you is no. And that is the worst word that somebody can say to you. And if that's all it is, you just go for it, because women are underrepresented. I get that, but in a world of digital finance, AI, and borderless transactions, and with the way that we're going in the world, we need more women in coding and things, because I work in an environment where most of the codes, law is going to be code soon. Maybe make no mistake, in the next 10 years, I say law will be code and code will be law. If we have 25-year-old men and guys writing that code, we have an ethical problem. So you need to step up in those particular positions, and then that's how you get a seat at the table, because you write the frameworks that old fuddy-duddies don't understand what you're doing.
I'd add in about 30 seconds to that if you're able, I think you said invisible, the chat message. If you're invisible and you're not being listened to, then you're in the wrong place, and we can't ever bloom in the wrong environment, whether that's personally or professionally. So maybe put your energy into getting into a new environment rather than trying to sit at the wrong table. That's been a big lesson for me in life too.
Thank you very much. These are really wonderful conversations, and to be honest, this event just marks a launch for us, but it kind of marks the beginning of a community, so we can have such questions and answer, and these conversations more and more. And at WGRCFP, we are here to support your learning, leadership, network, your impact. So we invite you to join us for more such conversations through membership, research events. And I want to acknowledge the extraordinary contributions we have had today from our keynote speakers, panelists, our participants, everybody who joined. And thank you once for being part of this moment. We look forward to seeing you at the upcoming programs. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye, good morning.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks a million.